basement. Level vibes with another one. Straight up. Blackness, aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benskop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and on the radio and catch the boom song. We boom it up already, we have to boom it up again. Expose and reveal him. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Mr. Mark, I believe every word of what Mr. Shu is saying. I am also afraid of Mr. Shu. Mr. Shu, if you are listening, I don't want anybody to harm you. This is a serious thing. Corruption is big. And we Chinese have to stop that. Been bullied by Jack Dale and other government official to pay bribe. It's big all over Guyana. A Chinese to pay by bribe. Mr. Shu, I hope you to stay strong. Do not. We respect and salute you for your bravery, for coming out and speak against corruption in Guyana. Thank you, Mr. Shu. We appreciate you, Mr. Mark. 马克，我相信每一句苏先生说的话。我现在很担心苏先生。苏先生，如果你在听我说话，我不想任何人威胁你。圭亚那政府腐败很严重，这个是很严重的事情。我们中国人必须停止被那些政府用武力行贿。苏先生，我希望你能继续你的发表，也希望你在新的一年万事如意。
It means that we would not have gotten the statements of poll for every polling station. To be honest, the People's Republic Party have only a handful of statements of poll. The people who will have statements of poll for all the polling stations would be the large parties, which would be the coalition and the PPPC, because they would have been able to send scrutineers to all the polling stations. So let me say that that verification process that we are hoping GCOM will have to return to complete will be largely between the coalition, that is the SOPs that the coalition has, and the SOPs that the PPPC has. Because the small parties only have a smattering of SOPs. Now, having said that, let me let you know that we small parties were given handouts with collated versions of the SOPs. We were very kindly given, because when we said, well, because we didn't have scrutineers at all the stations, I can tell you that one of the big parties very kindly offered us copies of a handout that had collated the results from the SOPs. Now, let me tell you, in the spirit of transparency, that as the presidential candidate for the PRP, I had a look at those results. It wasn't an in-depth look, because our election agent has that collated copy that we got from one of the big parties in her possession. But I can tell you this much. When I had a look at it, I was surprised, because I saw results on it that did not bear out the results that I had from the smattering of SOPs that we collected at the polling stations where we had scrutineers.
All right, hey, guess what? Good evening. My name is Mark Benchop, and thank you so much for joining us. If you're listening from Guyana, we want to say Labor Day, happy Labor Day. It's a holiday in Guyana. Lots of holidays in Guyana, right? Lots of things happening in Guyana. Sorry, I know sometimes you guys may be asking yourselves, how is it that Benchop pronounces Guyana as Guyana, right? Good evening to all of you. I don't know, our operator started off right off the bat with these two folks on the screen, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Home Affairs and the man who sits there as the installed Minister of Home Affairs. To this day, he has not answered the question as to whether his U.S. visa was revoked or not. He hasn't answered that question. Folks would still like to know, because all he has to do is to come outright to say that no, his U.S. visa has not been revoked, or yes, it has. That's all. Stop the arrogance. After all, he is being paid by taxpayers of Guyana. We know, at least those of you, probably, I'm sure everybody knows by now, that the permanent secretary, his permanent secretary, has just had her visa revoked by the U.S. authority. We don't know, and we're not going to know, at least not in an official capacity, what's in the cell phone that the U.S. authority seized from the permanent secretary. And the other question is, what else was seized? How much money? And that's the question we've been asking. How much money has she been carrying? Has it exceeded the amount? And if so, did the U.S., and this is what she has to answer, did the U.S. confiscated monies, U.S. currency, from her? And if so, how much? Again, if so, how much? That's all. She should be answering those questions. The other thing is, how is it that we are not hearing anything about the other folks who traveled with her? This guy traveled with her. We're not hearing anything from this guy. Ali, that's his name. I'm sure no relation to Irfan Ali, but he traveled with her along with another guy, and we know the other guy's name. Why is it we're not hearing from these guys, and what was the purpose of this trip? Why is it, and again, we go back now, why is it that she's still sitting there as the permanent secretary? She is not to be trusted. And I'm not going to just rush out to say what's on the cell phone, because I don't know. But what we can assume, mind you, is that her text messages were reviewed, her emails were reviewed, WhatsApp messages were reviewed, photographs were reviewed, transactions were reviewed. And with that, I say good evening to the acting commissioner of police. What's his name again? Hicken. Clifton Hicken. Good evening to you. Is Clifton Hicken featured on that phone? It's just a question I'm asking. Is the crime chief featured on that phone? It's just a question I'm asking, mind you. Is Azruddin Mohammed featured, that controversial businessman? Is he featured on that phone? And others. I will certainly get into that and more. But for now, this evening, there's some other things we want to talk about. The intelligence unit to spy on citizens. I just invited our operator, Lemon. You can let us know. You can let us know. You can let us know, right? If we pay attention, some guys like to divert a little attention. You know, sometimes we get a little carried away with that, right? Let's stay focused, guys. Let's stay focused. We have invited this evening because I want to talk quickly. We had two other persons, but one of them actually opted out because they got caught up on the quarantine at this time. But we have attorney at law Shellen Washington is backstage. The person got caught up on the quarantine. This is not the person, though. This is a Range Rover. A Range Rover caught a fire, West Coast Berbice. West Coast Burmese. That's it. Just like that. Fire. Burn up. Brand new Range Rover. Done. It's done with. It's over with. I don't know who's this. Who this belongs to. I don't know. Certainly, I am not sure if it was the PS. We probably would have been hearing that by now, right? We probably would have been hearing that by now. All right, we have attorney at law, Ms. Shellon Washington, with us this evening. Good evening, Ms. Washington. That's not your Range Rover, right?
Absolutely not. Good night, Mark. And it's a pleasure to be here as usual. And good night to all your listeners out there tonight.
Good evening, and so nice to have you with us here. Before we get into some questions, I want to ask you about the that intelligence unit, made up strictly to spy on citizens, spy on political opponents, spy on public servants, spy on lawyers, spy on certain policemen and women who are not doing the dirty biddings of the regime. I'm not sure if you saw this today. This is a gunman, a gunslinger. They have a lot of these gunslingers in Guyana, just given gun licenses just like that. And so there was some sort of altercation. And we're seeing here that the driver of this vehicle, who is under the umbrella, and mind you, it's not the famous, not really famous, the second lower tier lawyer in Guyana. He's not the one that is holding that umbrella for that guy. But the occupants of that car, a woman and children, and this gunslinger, Shane Rahim, that's the name of the gunslinger, Shane Rahim, supervises cleaners. That's what he does. He supervises cleaners. Grand Amazonian Security Agency. Grand Amazonian Security Agency. And guess what? The company owner, Mahendra Dharmachand, father of Ramnaresh Sarwan. That is what we're hearing. But how does that make you feel? Attorney at law, Shellon Washington, that beautiful country Guyana turned into this ugly scenes every day?
Mark, we know too well by now that this is typical in a country like Guyana, where there's widespread corruption, where there's, people in power are giving favoritism or favors to their friends and family. So if you notice that they're giving out gun license without properly vetting people in Guyana, that's not surprising, because I do not think it's proper, or it shouldn't even be legal to just carry a firearm in public like that, and then to pull it out like that. It seems as if he's about to take some sort of action, and I don't see his life being in any danger. I don't see any threat around him. I don't see anything he's defending, because as you know, there's a couple of reasons, or there are limited times where you could use any type of force, or even appear as if you're about to do that. So, I mean, I'm not really surprised at a lot of the things I'm seeing in Guyana. We already know who we have in power. We know what we're dealing with, and we understand the lawless nature of Guyana.
The lawless nature indeed. And this security firm that he works for, he supervises cleaners for Grand Amazonian Security. And the head of the security firm was there. We're told the name of this individual is Ronaldo Pollard. I don't know what's happening in that country. The Wild West indeed. Wild West. And this guy, his name is Shane Rahim. The company that he works for is owned by Ramnaresh Sarwan and his father, Mahendra Dharamchand. I don't know, Miss Washington. Honestly, I don't know. Any person they are allowed to carry firearm licenses. Anyone from these guys to that guy on the right, critic, all of them are allowed to carry firearm licenses. And it is dangerous, ma'am. It is dangerous right now in Guyana under the PPP regime. So dangerous that we're hearing that hundreds upon hundreds of firearm licenses were given out to cronies of the PPP, persons with questionable background, all manner of things. You just take firearm licenses. If you can't get it the legit way, you pay $5 million or $2 million, or sorry, $2-3 million for a gun license. And this is something else that the permanent secretary will have to answer to. I don't know if that information is on the cell phone, but a lot of things are on the cell phone. Speaking of the permanent secretary, ma'am, are you surprised that she's still there as permanent secretary?
I'm not at all surprised. We look at the nature of politics in Guyana. We look at the nature of how typically business is conducted, because, you know, in most other developed country, and I have to say, I have to stress this, because Guyana is a developing country, not a developed country. And as you know, Mark, in most developed country where democracy is strictly in, well, that's the way politics is in a lot of developed countries. There's a lot of transparency and there's a lot of accountability. Where there's allegations against a person in a public office, the normal procedure would be for an inquiry to be done into whatever allegations is being spread or whatever is being circulated. And then the next thing would be to ask that person either to step down temporarily or, leave permanently from that office. But where we in a country where, law and order is not the order of the day, like a country in Guyana, but it's just basically lawlessness, we could see why clearly where the permanent secretary would have a situation where her phone was seized by U.S. government, by CBP, and nothing is being done. No actions are being taken against her. No internal investigation by the Guyana government is being done into the allegations. They're not even contacting the U.S. authorities to figure out why was the PS singled out? Why was her phone seized? And if they did have a legitimate reason for doing that, they could at least figure out or find out what was found on that phone that warranted a revocation of the PS visa. As you know, for your visa to be revocated, you have to have infringed the United States law. Because most of the instances I am aware of where visas were revoked is where people committed fraud, or they lied to obtain a benefit to come to this country, or they came to the United States and on United States soil, they committed a crime. For instance, they violated immigration's law by working without being properly, they don't have a work permit. These are various reasons why a visa would be revoked. And so the question is that the Guyana government need to be answering to the Guyanese public is why was the PS phone visa revoked and why was her phone seized? They need to come out and tell the Guyanese people what is really happening here. And like I said, Mark, there's no accountability in Guyana. So this is not surprising that she will remain in office without, there's no, Guyanese are not holding these public officials accountable. So I'm not surprised.
They've got to be held accountable, and no one seems to be wanting to do that. Instead, what we're getting is a bunch of excuses and excuses and excuses, ma'am. So unfortunate, isn't it? And how dangerous is this for democracy?
That's extremely dangerous, because you're running a situation here where there's allegations that needs to be addressed. And if allegations are found to be valid, or if there's any proof of any criminal conduct or criminal activity on the part of any public official whatsoever, that official need to be removed from office. And if the government, as in this case, the Guyanese government, there's issues with public officials, and they're not being held accountable and they're allowed to continue in office, then it's not surprising that democracy will be suppressed in those countries like Guyana, where we know that democracy is suppressed because the will of the people is never allowed to prevail. What is prevailing is the will of those in power. They're enforcing their will on the people. It's either their way or the highway. That's very, very dangerous. You can never have a democracy without accountability, and holding those in certain positions accountable for their actions, accountable for any decisions they make. Until that is allowed, until the Guyanese people are allowed to hold these public officials accountable, we don't have a democracy. Again, we can't even mention the word democracy because, first of all, it's the PPP's country. It's their country. It's whoever is in power. They're controlling Guyanese right now. They're controlling the elections with fraud. They're controlling everything based on fraudulent conduct. So we can't even speak the word democracy when we come to Guyana.
Exactly. 26 minutes after 9 o'clock. My name is Mark Benchap. Let's move away from the controversial permanent secretary who still sits there. And let's move over to the guy. Oops. Yep. Adil Nandalal. That's him. He has aged a lot. I almost didn't recognize him. He sits there as the installed attorney general. The intelligence unit that these guys are now tabling in the parliament. We are hearing that the Guyana Bar Association, which is not it's not a legal entity per se that they have control over lawyers, but they have objected to one part of the bill that has to do, according to the president, quote unquote, president of the Guyana Bar Association, Miss Chase, is that there's a part in that intelligence bill that infringes on the rights of between lawyer clients' rights and their privileges and so forth, whatever that is. What is your take, though, Miss Washington, on an intelligence unit that will violate the rights of citizens of Guyana? Your take, ma'am.
You know, the problem is, I would say, is mostly the Constitution, because the Constitution of any country is what offers protection to the citizens' rights and their liberty. And if the Constitution is not very strong in protecting the rights and the liberty of those people, then to some extent you'll have people like Anil Nandalal attempting to implement laws that will tend to infringe on the liberty or the rights of the people. But there's another step other than the Constitution. There's also the common law, and the common law has certain rights that they're protected by the courts. So if Anil Nandalal wants to spy on citizens, like I said, though, Mark, the unfortunate thing is Guyanese constitution is not very strong in protecting citizens' rights like you would have a developed country like the United States would do. The citizens' right is optimal, it's prime, and that is protected at all costs. An American citizen's right is not taken lightly. This is why Americans have the right to bear arms. They have the right to silence. They have certain rights that is embedded in the Constitution that the forefathers ensured that was written there. However, on the other hand, in Guyana, our Constitution, it's not as strong. And I think one of the reasons why it's not as strong is because a lot of times the writers, the people who write the Constitution, sometimes they don't foresee things down the road. In the case here, because to infringe, to violate, to invade the rights of citizen, that's a common law right that's protected also. So I'm not sure how they intend to, even if they try to pass parliament with that type of law, I'm not sure how they're going to get past the common law, because the judges are going to sit there in the court to protect the rights of citizens. And that's a clear violation of rights. It's an invasion of one's privacy to record. You cannot spy on any citizen unless there's a reason. And even in America, the reason why they would even have like wiretap laws and permit for that type of spying is to prevent terroristic activities on their soil. But on the other hand, again, I'm not sure why they would need that sort of law to protect Guyana from what? We don't have terroristic threats. And they're in they're impeding on the rights of a client and attorney to have that type of privilege that is protected by the common law. It's something protected by the Constitution. It's protected in most countries. You cannot penetrate that right and you cannot take it away. So, I mean, if Ms. Chase is wanting to object to that, I don't know how she would unless she's going to take it to the court, because as far as I'm aware, the Legal Practitioners Act, I'm not aware of any right that she has as the president of the Bar Association to act independent in terms of objecting on her own without taking some sort of action through the court. I'm not aware of that right that she might have, but I mean, somebody ought to object to that type of conduct or that type of move on the part of the Attorney General.
And it has been taken or sent to the to some sort of committee, and they are going to review that. But there are some other serious stuff in that bill, the Intelligence Unit bill, that violates people's rights. They can snatch you at any time. They can spy on you at any time. And there are few of us who are accustomed to being spied on for many years. And this bill is a dangerous, dangerous bill indeed. If you're now joining us, Miss Washington, attorney at law, we're talking about the intelligence bill. A lot of you guys don't know that your cell phones, you're being spied on by the corrupt PPP regime. Your movements, you're being spied on. If you're a political operative and you're deemed a political threat to the PPP, that is what they do. And this bill will basically intensify situation in Guyana. I want to move back to an incident that happened not so long ago. I'm sure that you probably saw it here on 107.1 FM. That here's a security company that this is exactly what has happened. That guy with the machine gun there beating up on another guy, a businessman. Again, I asked the same question. No justice, nothing at all. How does that make you feel, Ms. Washington? I mean, you're Guyanese, you love, and we all do love our country of birth, yes. But we're seeing these sort of acts, brazen acts, without any form of repercussion, no justice whatsoever as a result of the PPP and their friends. Again, your take. How does this make you feel?
Mark, I lived the situation in Guyana, and I know if you have money, if you have power in Guyana, you're above the law, you're untouchable. So as much as it angers me to see an injustice being perpetrated against any person, whether it be a Guyanese citizen or any person, I do understand the situation with Guyana is very unique. We do know that Guyana is a very corrupt society. We do understand that the police, they're controlled by the government, and they're also controlled based on money, status, power. These are things that we're aware of as citizens, as people coming from that country. So I'm already aware that if a situation like this happens, somebody is brutally beaten for no just reason, and even if you could say that it's justifiable, it has to go through the court. No one should be beaten in this manner and it left unchecked. The police should have arrested and charged the gunman. But unfortunately, Guyana is a society where might is right and power and money controls everything. If you have money and you have power in Guyana, you control everything and you're above the law. We understand that that's not a democratic society that we live in America, where when you infringe the law, you will suffer the consequences. You will pay the penalty. If you violate the law, we do understand in America, there are consequences. But in Guyana, you violate the law, you have money and you have friends in power, you know that there are no consequences. You just pass a few, millions or whatever it is, and you know that you'll walk the streets without being charged. The police wouldn't come after you. Nobody's going to arrest you. You just get your friends to make a few phone calls and you're free. This is the society that we have in Guyana. And, it's no shame that under the PPP, this is widespread. Power, money rules everything. When we had the APNU, the coalition government, we had a little bit of time of law and order. Law and order was restored to Guyana. But that time has passed, and we've gone back to a society where there's no hope of democracy, there's no hope of any proper structure in terms of law and order, and there's no possibility on the horizon anytime soon, unless the Guyanese people arise and take action and say, well, enough is enough. We know that this is not anywhere soon that we're going to get Guyana into a lawful society. It's going to remain lawless as long as we allow it to remain lawless.
Under the PPP, it will remain lawless until the people get rid of them via the ballot boxes, mind you, via elections. Not how this guy wants to probably get rid of that guy that he pulled that gun on. His name is Shane Rahim. Shane Rahim. He works for. Did you guys know that Ram Naresh Sarwan got a security firm now, and his dad and all these people? I don't know. Shane Rahim, shame on you. His gun license, ought to be revoked, and Sarwan and his father should be issuing an apology, should be issuing a statement. Before we get to that, here, you guys think I'm kidding? Look at what's happening there. Look at what's happening. This is the firearm license. Again, this is the firearm license for the company, Grand Amazonian Security. Grand Amazonian Security. You see the names there. This is it. Suddenly they have all these sort of things here. And if you notice, we got the evidence to prove to you guys. This is it. This is how they operate. What do you think? You're a lawyer, Miss Washington. What penalty do you think this individual, putting on, of course, your legal cap, as always, what penalty should this individual face? And the company.
First of all, this is a shock to me that a firearm license is issued to a corporation. This is kind of shocking to my conscience, because in America, a firearm license is issued to an individual, because that person has to be vetted. You have to ensure that whoever is going to carry that arm is going to be somebody who have certain characteristics, and they're going to engage in the conduct. It's not going to be anything that's going to violate the law. But this is actually laughable that Guyana issues firearm license to corporation. A corporation, although legally it's a person, it's considered a person, it cannot carry a firearm. A firearm has to be carried by an individual who should be vetted, whose characteristics should be tested. They should have to bring references and submit that before they're approved to carry a firearm. Because when you issue a firearm license to a corporation, what if they hire some maniac and the maniac doesn't even know the law? He doesn't even understand that this is not the way you carry a firearm, and a firearm should only be used in limited circumstances in carrying out your responsibilities to prevent the violation of the law. And to pull your firearm where you don't even have a reason to, clearly he should be prosecuted. The police should investigate why is this individual walking around with this firearm and pulling it on somebody when he really doesn't have the right to do so. And the person should file charges against him, because that right there is a violation of the law, and he's threatening the guy. The guy's life is threatened at that point when he holds a firearm like this. That's a threat. And that guy should actually go to the police and make a report, and the police should investigate, file charges, and prosecute this man for doing this. This conduct is shameful. And even the firearm license is shame on Guyana, shame on the police force for issuing a firearm license to a corporation. A corporation cannot carry a firearm. A person can. Shame. This is disgraceful. I'm even ashamed to know that this is coming out from the country I'm from. Disgraceful.
And beyond that, and firearm licenses, if you look at the type of individuals who walk around with a firearm license and gun, embarrassing. You know, they don't even test these people. You should see how this nutcase operates. And some of them would, I don't know, some serious mental issues in Guyana, and they are walking around with firearm licenses. I don't know. $1 million.
They're not vetting these people. No one is vetted in Guyana. if you know friends, if you have friends in the police force or whoever, you just go and you pay and you get your firearm license. But I'm not sure how could he be working out. This shocks my conscience, really. How could you
Evidence,
issue a
evidence.
firearm license to a corporation? Who is
Yes.
carrying it? Is the corporation carrying a firearm license?
No, they give it to these lagu bagus to walk around and pull their firearm, pull their guns on individuals, innocent citizens. That's what they do. But you know what? Firearm licenses are up for sale in Guyana. Something that Robeson-Ben wouldn't want to answer. The price for firearm licenses have increased under the PPP regime. Increased. I know of, and the evidence is there to prove that there's one multi individual who happens to have the same position as a profession that you're in as a lawyer, mind you, was in the habit of collecting millions of dollars from Chinese for their gun licenses. A couple of Chinese complained to authorities that individual was in the habit of collecting their monies. But look, we leave things as it is right now. It's raining outside, and when I leave the studio, I got to find my umbrella. Now, let's move on here now, Miss Washington. We'll take a quick break. You're a lawyer. You're getting to be a popular lawyer in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and where it is? Connecticut, right? And the 5 boroughs. I want to ask you.
No, Mark, not Connecticut.
Or not Connecticut, but
no, I only do limited practice in the state of New Jersey. 95% of the practice in New York.
If you ever run for any office in New York City, in New York, you have my support, full support, whether judgeship or whatever, you have my support. But at your office, again, remind our listeners, what exactly do you do in terms of practice?
Right, Mark, I do personal injuries cases, matrimonial, landlord and tenant, and I do have I do a lot of tort, personal injuries, and any type of tort, tort to property or person. And I do some amount of immigration. I do have associates and paralegals in that area in my firm.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, continue.
So immigration is a part of it. Like I said before. So when it comes to family-based petition, citizenship, the only thing I would exclude is removal proceedings. We do not do removal proceedings, period.
And removal proceedings are basically if someone is in front of the court, the immigration court, to be kicked out of the U.S.
Right. It used to be called deportation, but they removed the stigma from it. And they started to call it removal proceeding. And therefore, if you in removal proceeding, you could also do voluntary departure. You could opt to say, well, I don't want to go through removal proceedings. Yeah, you just get me a ticket and send me back to my home country, and that's voluntary departure.
Gotcha. Shellon Washington, attorney at law here, landlord tenants and all. We're going to get back to some nice, hot political stuff, but I just want people to go out and if they have any issue, any matter, to support you, to support your law firm. Landlord tenants as well, right? Because we may have some tenants watching and some landlords watching that the landlords might have issues. What's happening? Talk to us about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, for the landlord and tenant, I just want to stress this part because I'm mostly landlord attorney. I would say most of what I do is for the landlords because I have a lot of small landlords in New York, in Brooklyn in particular. Most of my clients are in Brooklyn. And those landlords are, small property owner. It might be like up to a 5 family. In some cases, occasionally they'll have multi family units with more than 5 units in there, maybe 16 units or higher. But for the most part, I like the small property because those are the easiest. With the multi-unit, which are either rent stabilized or rent control, the law is making it harder and harder on landlords to get tenants out. I think after COVID in particular, And even before COVID, they changed the laws in 2019 to stop allowing 30 days notices. 30 days notices are only now allowed if you have a really, really short term tenancy. So that tenancy has to be less than 1 year, under 1 year, for you to be able to do a 30 days notice. Now, landlords have to wait 60 and 90 days just to evict a tenant. And a lot of times the landlords don't even know the law. And if they try to fight this battle by themselves, at times they lost. I've just actually went to court recently and saw a landlord try to evict her own sister pro se. And the judge threw the case out. The judge told her the notice was defective. She said the sister was living there since 2012. The judge said she only served 60 days notice. The judge told her she needed a 90 days and threw her case out. And this is the kind of thing that's been happening in Brooklyn recently with landlord and tenant. So you just have to be careful. If you're a landlord, you have a 2 or 3 family property that you're renting just to make an extra income. Got to be very, very careful with who you rent. You got to make sure you vet those tenants properly and make sure you put the right tenant into your property. And I do have a section of my business that do vetting of tenants for landlords, to ensure that they don't take anybody who is not credit worthy or even don't trustworthy in terms of their character to put into their properties. So we do tenant vetting just to ensure that at least the landlords that I have as clients put the right people into their properties.
All right, Shalon Washington, attorney at law. We'll take a quick commercial break. I have some more political questions for her. For those of you who want her telephone number and her address where she's office is located, it's on Utica Avenue. Pay careful attention to this ad, and we'll be right back with some political news.
So this is attorney Shalon Washington, owner and founder of the Washington law firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
All right. Thank you so much for that commercial there. For all your information, you get in touch with Shalon Washington, attorney at law, 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. Telephone number was just announced. Can you repeat that telephone number again, Ms. Washington, please?
Yes, it's 718-877-3100.
All right. Thank you so much. Just out of curiosity, nothing personal. How long should someone, if someone is in someone's house, how long before they can actually legally put them out?
Well, it's legally, when you say how long should they
30
legally
days, 90 days?
It depends, Mark. That's what I was saying. There are different types of notice, and it depends on what type of tenant you're speaking about, because there's different rules. If it's a family member, if it's a licensee, if it's a tenant, these are all factors that has to be taken into consideration. So it's not a question that I could give you, black and white answer for. I would have to have more content in terms of what you're talking about before I could actually give you any type of advice on that. I did see somebody was asking a question about a month, if it's safe to do a month-to-month.
Month-to-month lease. Yep.
Yeah, in New York, it's really not safe to do month-to-month. I wouldn't advise anyone. If you're a landlord, I would say, yeah, do a month-to-month if you're a landlord. But if you're a tenant, I would advise you against, because the unfortunate thing about the state of New York is if the property is not rent stabilized or rent controlled, that landlord could evict you at any time. So if you were lucky to get a low rent that took you over into current time, and it's a really nice landlord, if you could lock that landlord in on at least a 1 year, 2 year lease or something, that's better for you. Because if you're left to go out there and find a place to rent right now, it's brutal. It's brutal. Rent is pretty high right now. And as you know, a landlord could evict you for any type of reason whatsoever if you do not have a lease and your property that you're living is not rent stabilized or rent controlled. Any reason at all. If he wakes up and he realizes, oh, I don't want this person to stay here anymore, he can evict you. If he has a family member and he wants to put that person in that apartment, he can evict you. So it's that easy when you have no lease and the apartment or the property is not rent stabilized nor rent control.
All right. And if you're having any problems, landlords, tenants, or whatever, give Miss Washington a call. That's what she's here for. And I asked that question because I was told of a situation where, as a Guyanese visiting from Guyana, of course, was with her relatives for about 2 months. And when the relatives say you got to leave, the visiting relative said, well, y'all can't put me out just so I get my rights. I know my rights. And so, hence my reason for asking that particular question.
Okay, so now you give me a little more content. So now I could actually comment. Mark, she's been there for 2 months.
Yeah.
Right? So after you keep a license, she's a licensee. She wasn't a tenant. She's a licensee. So if you keep a licensee 2 months, you have to serve her a notice to get her out.
Wow.
A 30 days notice. And if she doesn't leave, then you have to evict her as a licensee.
Wow. Well, you guys heard that, right? Let's move on. I have this, and thank you so much again, Miss Washington. We're looking at the time. We have this cop here, Detective Sergeant Bascom. This situation happened months ago. A murder probe that was actually contaminated. This guy came out. He's a whistleblower. Everything seemed to have died down. In this case, I'm sure, in terms of trying to remember it, it's the Fagundes murder case. Fagundes murder case where this cop said, look, he knows then that there were other senior members of the Guyana police force who were trying to cover up the murder of this guy. And to this day, this guy who is standing next to Irfan Ali happens to be one of these suspects. His name is Azruddin Muhammad. I'm sure you're familiar with that name. But are you surprised, though, ma'am, that thus far the police seem to have no interest at all in questioning the suspects?
I think I've said it earlier on the show that if you have money, you have friends in the right places, you basically control the narrative in Guyana. The police is basically controlled by, they receive payment, they take bribes. That's nothing new in Guyana. And then if you have instructions coming down from the office of the president, which is most likely, because we do understand the society that, we have there in Guyana. If instructions is coming down from the head, not to prosecute, not to move forward, not to press charges, I guarantee you whoever is in authority is going to pass those instructions down to ranks in the police force, and the police force is just not going to take any action. I think it's pitiful, it's shameful, it's a disgrace that in this day and age where things are becoming more and more transparent, because now people are able to record conversations, people have smartphones, and things get out that the police force is refusing to properly investigate something where there's allegations that police ranks was engaged in a cover-up of a murder. A murder is a murder. If somebody is killed, it needs to be properly investigated. There's no statute of limitations on murder. So if Muhammad is accused of it, the police force could at any time go and properly investigate. And they're getting information from an ex-police officer telling them, like, this is what happened. These police were engaged in this type of cover-up. And this type of conduct is lawless. It's disgraceful, because those who are supposed to be in law enforcement, those are supposed to be enforcing the law, are themselves covering up and violating the law, because they're an accessory after the fact. All those police officers who are covering up are accessories after the fact, because they're engaged in the cover-up of a criminal activity. So they themselves ought to be charged. But that's the thing again, if you have those on top passing the instructions down to engage in corrupt practices, you cannot expect anything to happen. You cannot expect us to move forward. You cannot expect justice to be served, because you have those at the very top, and there's no sort of accountability. There's no sort of transparency, because even the DPP, could come out and say, we're going to move forward and we're going to lay charges. Those who are engaged in covering up are accessories after the fact and need to be charged. Those in the police force need to be charged. The Guyanese people should come out and press and make noise about this, because it is wrong. You can't have those who are supposed to be protecting you and enforcing the law engaging in lawless conduct, violating the law themselves.
But this guy he has been interdicted, and instead of focusing on bringing justice for the family, they basically focused on persecuting this guy, Detective Sergeant Bascom, who is the whistleblower, still afraid for his life. And still, these folks, Asruddin Mohammed, who is said to be a close friend of the acting commissioner of police, whose name I believe, well, both of them, probably their names featured in that cell phone. Probably, I'm saying, mind you, their names were heavily featured in that cell phone that was confiscated by the U.S. authority from the permanent secretary. So lots and lots of questions. I'm not sure if any information pertaining to CCTV camera information, I don't know, but lots of things could have been gotten. Go ahead, ma'am. Sorry about that.
You see, the truth is going to come out eventually, Mark, because that cell phone, if it does contain any type of evidence that would support criminal conduct on the part of anybody of interest to the United States government in terms of any criminal investigation, it's going to come out eventually, because the U.S. government is going to eventually have to say something. They're going to come out eventually and say something if they eventually uncover criminal conduct or evidence on that phone that could be used in a court of law to prosecute somebody who has been violating the laws of the United States.
Absolutely, violating the laws of the United States. And we definitely will be hearing much more about that. I'm almost certain that information will not be shared with the Ministry of Home Affairs. Information will not be shared with the Attorney General of Guyana. It is not going to be shared at all. As we prepare to close off tonight's program, Ms. Washington, I want to ask you your question. It's Labor Day in Guyana, and we want to salute all of the hardworking folks in Guyana. What is your opinion about a cartoon I'm about to show you that appeared in today's Stabroek News? Your opinion, please. For me, I'll let you know how I feel about this. From Stabroek News, it's sexist. Look at the woman. Look at the bottle of champagne. And look at where they have oil wealth. Do you think that would have been accepted in the United States, let's say, from a Washington Post or a New York Daily News or a New York Post?
I do not think so, because, in America, people are held accountable. And if you do anything that is believed to violate any particular group of people or any sex, Americans are going to say, they're going to come out and they're going to say something. So if Guyana is being displayed as such in a cartoon, I agree it's sexist, because they're using a woman to demonstrate oil wealth in Guyana. And I don't know, this doesn't look like the type of way that and it's in bed too. It's in bed.
Exactly. And the thing is that I was going to give it a week to see if any women's organization in Guyana would pick up on it. It's almost 24 hours. No one has said anything about it at all.
Right. And then look at the way the communication is. My deal is bigger and better than yours, It's shameful, but
What do you think? Do you think that this cartoon should be pulled by the Stabroek News and an apology be issued? Your take?
Yeah, they should absolutely pull this type of cartoon. We're moving away from this type of society, this type of using this type of sexist display of things, and especially where it comes to a female. And Guyana should get on board also and be careful, be cautious with what you publish, because you don't want to be offensive in any way. And I think this cartoon is very offensive, to take a woman it's like a prostitute, you know. It's like a prostitute that is being portrayed as. It is not good, and it's a woman they're using. So it needs to be pulled, and they should issue an apology to the women of Guyana to be portraying or well Guyana in such a way. It's just not even decent.
And you know, the thing is, though, Miss Washington, thus far, no one has picked up on this. Absolutely no one has picked up on it.
Mark, really, Guyana is a blind society. So don't get this twist. Guyana is really blind, and unless their eyes are open, a lot of times this is their norm. A lot of things in Guyana is Guyanese norm. So they don't see things the way we who live in a democratic society where things are people are being held accountable for anything that is deemed offensive or of anything of that nature. They're not in that type of environment. So it's taken a long time to catch on to Guyanese for them to recognize that when you see something that is offensive, or you should have an eye to recognize and speak up against things. Don't allow people to be offensive against any particular group or persons in your country. Protect your country, protect the women, protect women's rights, protect whoever, minorities, whoever it is, protect those people's rights and speak up against anything that doesn't look right.
Certainly speak up about anything and everything that certainly do not look right. Oil wealth placed right there next to the woman lying on a bed with a bottle of champagne and the writing, "My deal is bigger and better than yours."
It's like
Only-
a pond. It's like a pond
only
of
in
words.
Guyana. Shameful cartoon by the
Mhm.
staff of the news. Women
Mhm.
organizations in Guyana are silent on these things. Anyways, in closing, you recall the former mayor of Georgetown, did nothing for the people of Georgetown, created scores of controversies in Georgetown, and now she is with the PPP. She is in bed with the PPP. No pun intended there at all. Politically speaking, mind you, with the PPP. Her name is Patricia Chase Green. Right after she went on and sported her red T-shirt, guess what? She was right at work. Look what they put her to do. You see her there in her tights?
Yep. Mhm.
See what she's cleaning?
Cleaning
Gather
the
few
gutters.
people. Your take before we go, please.
I've already said this before because I already knew that if you see these people who are not long-term PPP supporters, there had to be something in it for them. So it's basically hanging your mouth where the soup drop. So I'm not at all surprised that she was probably doing that for a gain. And that's why Guyanese need to wake up and realize all those Judases, they're selling their souls for two pieces of shilling and silver. That's what they're doing. They're selling their souls. And she was just doing this for a gain, a financial gain. So this tells you the character of that person. And that's somebody Guyanese should never trust. Anybody who's willing to sell their soul for two pieces of shilling and a gold like Judas, do not trust that person. Don't trust them with your vote. Don't trust them with your life. Don't trust them with your country, because the same way they betray you, they'll betray your country. Don't trust people like that. She's just out for financial gain. She's out for money. And this was just a stunt to get that money from the PPP. She wants to be in the payment plan with the PPP, and that's where she is. She probably got that contract because of what she did.
And we don't see this in any other community, Miss Washington, but the African Guyanese community, where you give them some crumbs and you put them to clean gutters and drains. This is the other point that I'm looking at, that the regime, the installed PPP regime, is proud to see persons of African descent doing just this. And this is what they probably laugh at Freedom House and say, "Oh, we're just going to give them a couple of some crumbs, and then Patricia Chase Green is going to give these other people a piece of the crumbs, and we'll put them to clean drains and gutters, and they're happy," because that's what they're capable of doing. Disrespectful, huh?
Very disrespectful. And it's up to the Afro-Guyanese community to recognize what they're being used for and don't be a part of it. Refuse to be a part of it. Because if they weren't looking for supporters and she wasn't looking to get a piece of her financial gain, she wouldn't accept the crumbs and then go straight to work to clean the gutters for the PPP. Let the PPP pay valid contractors to do this type of stuff. Don't settle for mediocrity. And this is mediocrity at its highest level because she is settling for that, settling for the crumbs. Sell out her vote for crumbs. Shameful.
She doesn't know better.
Shameful.
Weakest mayor Georgetown has ever had. Whatever happened to quality women like Yvonne Harewood Ben, former mayor of Georgetown and so forth? My gosh, I hope we return to those days. Miss Washington, as we prepare to wrap up tonight's program, I don't want to put you through any stress at all, but I honestly don't want to put you through any stress, but I want you to leave tonight. I do want you to leave tonight with a smile on your face, and the smile must be when you look at some of your fellow Lindeners and you see what they've reduced themselves to, mockery. One guy out in Linden who put on a red T-shirt got into an incident with Sharma Solomon. The matter was reported to the Mackenzie police station. The folks in green went out to support Sharma Solomon, and the only person in red T-shirt was there all by himself, and he was upset. I'll play that video tomorrow. He was upset. He was saying, nobody is there to support him. I want that individual to know that none of them would support you. You might as well take that red T-shirt off and put back on your green or some other color T-shirt. Take your red T-shirt off. I'll leave tonight because we want to see that smile on your face. Here are your 3 Lindeners.
That's why he's rubbing nose. He don't look like...
Not your 3 Lindeners. But listen to this tape first, though, before we get to your 3 Lindeners, please.
That's why he's rubbing nose. He don't look like Squidward to you? Y'all get any pictures with Squidward? Y'all have any photographs with Squidward? Huh? Pull down Squidward from SpongeBob and put it sideways here. Let me see what's going on. Bring it up now and let me see. You sure there's not a glitch in the matrix? And Jagdio is actually Squidward? He always got himself some problem. Squidward always got some attitude. Huh? I kid you not. Right? What's the shining thing? There's a warning light. You got it up yet? It's what to do with Jagdio. They put on a headlamp on it. I don't know what to do to buy. No, but there's a serious thing. This man is the vice president of this country. All right. Yeah, keep it close. No, I can't make up these things.
We can't make up these things. And that guy that is talking actually has a firearm license too. He walks around with a gun.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know. Guyana is a laughing stock right now, but here are your 3 fellow Lindeners. Just a smile on your face.
Yeah, this is the elite team. The root team. Strong team.
Number 1.
PPP team. Yeah. You understand? PPP all the way. Yeah, 1 Guyana. Yes.
Holding the fort for Monday
Yeah.
morning.
In any weather, rain, sun,
We are
in the
here.
night. We there right here. We ain't going nowhere. We holding it for PPP.
Right. And everyone-
Comedy show with those guys tomorrow night, I'll give a particular situation with bond, cursing out somebody about their mother, stinking about their mother as an attorney. In the United States of America, an attorney doing that sort of thing, one, is cyberbullying. Two, they will be suspended and possibly their license revoked. I'll touch on that tomorrow. I'm not asking you any question on that at all.
Oh no, please don't, for obvious reasons.
I'm not doing, of course, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but I will deal. I'm watching and monitoring that situation. I want to deal with that, but like I said, also there are lots of folks on the U.S. watch list, so we are watching and monitoring that as well. Those who are on the U.S. watch list. Ms. Washington, your closing remarks, please, ma'am, before we go.
Yes, I want to say thank you again for having me on the show. And as always, thank you to all the listeners out there who faithfully come every night and share Mark's program and comment. We appreciate all your comments, and I appreciate all the support I've been getting from all you guys. I want to say thank you guys so much. I love you guys, and I know all of you have been referring me to friends and families. I want to say thank you so much for all those referrals. I really appreciate you guys. And I do hope you have a great rest of your night. And again, Mark, thank you for having me here. And I want to encourage all my Guyanese brothers and sisters to keep the good fight and keep pressing, keep sharing this type of program so that people all over, Guyanese all over, and just people generally will become aware, more and more aware of what is happening in our country. And hopefully we'll be able to advocate some changes. Hopefully through programs like this, we will eventually see some sort of changes in Ghana. Thank you again, guys, so much. I appreciate all of you. And thank you, Mark, so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Washington. Appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good. Shalom Washington there for you guys. And my name is Mark Benshap. Gosh, filthy mouth guy. You cannot be in public office and want to, and I'm addressing Bond here. You cannot be in public office. You cannot be in public office or want to be in public office or call yourself a leader and then can't take the pressure and cursing people out about their mother. I'm just going to give you guys a quick taste as to what really transpired for those who probably missed it. You just don't do that at all. You don't. I hope our operator will ensure that this is just, it's just internet. Sorry about that. Just give you guys a piece of what really transpired. If you're not into dirty stuff, please don't listen. Please. It's a shame. And if I were Norman Brown, probably file some sort of cyberbullying charge against Bond. It's got to stop. It's getting way too ridiculous.
I know, man. The only time I did broke is when I broke in your mother. I said, when friend turned enemy, that's the worst thing. Somehow y'all hate me for something. I don't know, is it the people? There's hate James Bond for something. It's like, I don't know. But the last time, you remember the last time I broke in Mrs. Brown.
We'll leave it as that for this evening. Despicable, disgraceful. And then these are individuals who want to pretend that they're talking for African Guyanese. These are individuals who pretend that they believe in unity, that they believe in democracy, and they believe in righteousness. Look, regardless of what disagreements people have, and I have a lot of disagreements with people, but you don't ever call people and curse them about their mother. Only a particular type of people or individuals or men would do those sort of things. Despicable, shameful.
That kind of freak into
Shameful.
I know, man. The only time I did broke is when I broke in your mother. I said, when friend turned enemy, that's the worst thing. Somehow, y'all hate me for something. I don't know what it is with people. There's hate James Bond for something. It's like, I don't know. You know, but the last time, you remember the last time I broke a Mrs. Brown. You're an idiot, bro. When I say you're an idiot, you're a complete idiot. I mean, I don't have to lay no claim to fame, nothing at all. But brother man, if you stack me up against 1 million of y'all, y'all still won't measure up. You know what I'm saying? I think it's an envy and a jealousy thing that, you know.
I don't know who's going to envy him or jealous him for what. Only God knows. For what? Only God knows. You know what's a shame and a disgrace? That a man who is supposed to be a lawyer, behaving worse than a madman, and pretends to be concerned about the welfare of Africans in that country. Something is wrong, but I'm not done. Trust me, I'm not done as yet. God bless you all. Have a good night. I'll be back tomorrow, same place, same time, right here on 107.1 FM. Pray for Guyana. Love you guys.
So, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington law firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Source. Maybe the Chinese company that did not get the agreement that they wanted here, maybe they're the ones who told you. Or it could be just a fictitious thing.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Jerome?
So, my relationship?
Basement level vibes with another one, straight up, blackness aye. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, Benskop stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, who tell the truth? Mark Benskop, defend the ghetto youth. Mark Benskop, radio station is the fruit. Mark Benskop, straight up from the root. Mark Benskop, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Benskop upon the radio, lively up the program. Everybody call somebody and let them turn and tune and on the radio and catch the boom song. We boom it up already, we have to boom it up again.